Before I begin, I'd like to know, how many people here know what the term neurodivergent means? For those who don't know, a neurodivergent individual processes information, stimuli, and the world differently from what is considered the typical brain. This topic has received more and more attention lately due to the advancements in psychology and psychiatry, which are now able to identify diagnoses such as autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, or dyslexia, and many others much earlier. And due to these advancements, the numbers of student enrollments that are diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergence have increased by 30% from 2023 to 2024 in Brazil. I am part of this larger group of people considered atypical, and I was diagnosed exactly at that time, which shaped most of my views and how I see the world. Upon seeing the data released, the Brazilian Ministry of Education made a statement claiming that now, more than ever, accessibility would become priority for these neurodivergent students in private and public schools. However, this is not true. It did not happen. I and many others have seen how many schools don't make the effort to help us. Until the middle of last year, I studied in a place where I faced many problems that were related to the lack of accessibility. I had to deal with internal and external problems by myself, not by myself, but without the school's help. A place that promised to have intimate contact with the students and adapted classes for those who needed it. For example, I was not met with empathy when I had meltdowns. Instead, I received judgment and I was blamed for them. I did not have adapted tests which I needed. And I didn't even have the proper support to subjects I missed due to these medical reasons related to my psychological state. However, accessibility goes far beyond these physical aspects, which are also important, especially in a place where they have the structure to do so. Accessibility also comes from a social aspect. For years, I suffered bullying and prejudice from other students, derogatory terms, exclusion, lack of support in relation to my abilities, and other types of negative treatment became part of my routine. Hearing people laughing behind my back or imitating the way I walked or talked, receiving irritated sighs when they knew they had to do a project with me was completely normal. And to try to include myself in this environment that did not welcome me, I tried to be different from who I am. I tried to seem overly nice. I tried to participate in every extracurricular activity I could to make friends. Or I tried to be very nice and friendly to everyone, but at the same time not talk too much. But even so, I didn't understand why nothing seemed to fit me better into groups or help me make real friends. And even if I tried to talk to a professional at school, I was met with, again, judgments and comments such as, "Have you ever tried to change? Don't you think the problem might be you?" But I tried to change every day, tried really hard my whole life. And then the obvious happened. I started to lose interest in school. My grades, until then always high, began to drop. I had no longer the desire to go to school or, matter of fact, leave my house. I didn't want to be who I am. And the worst of it, my self-esteem fell to the floor. I only saw myself through the limitations I had, which was exactly how everyone else saw me. But after a lot of help from medical professionals and my amazing mother, I changed schools, I changed my habits, and I changed my routine. And it took me such a long time for me to be able to integrate myself into social environments again. And nowadays, I can take a test without having a meltdown. I can talk about my feelings without being ashamed. And I have friends that like me for who I am and not for a personality I put up. And my grades have also improved. It's not perfect, obviously, but I went through experiences that still impact me to this day. And but after I went to a school that gives me the support I need as a neurodivergent student, I improved both my academic performance, my social life, and how I saw myself. And I improved thanks to this environment, which I received the help I needed, and I did not feel like a burden for needing help. And this place saw me beyond my limitations. They also saw my qualities and cherished them. However, the majority of neurodivergent students can't find a place like that or just don't leave. Because in our minds, it's much easier to stay in this negative place, instead of going to somewhere completely new. I am not the only neurodivergent student who has suffered from ableism in school environment. In 2025, a mother of an autistic girl was interviewed about the treatment of her daughter in school. She said there were principals who rejected the entrance of her daughter in the school because of her condition and how she was always treated as a burden by the educational system. And as if the accessibility that she needed to perform well was actually some sort of gift given by the institution. In the city of Grande Vitória in 2024, parents of autistic children participated in an education commission meeting sharing their experiences related to their children in the local schools. And a mother said that her autistic son that teachers never even came near him as if he had a disease. Even if they don't come near him, how do we expect him to help him? And most of these reports come from private schools and places that have the budget to help those in need. But it can be observed that some of them simply don't seem to care about the needs of these students. And on a social aspect, the situation seems to get worse. According to the Brazilian government, it is estimated that 78% of neurodivergent students, from children to teenagers, have or still suffer constant ableism in their school environment. This only shows that most educational institutions do not meet the minimum humanity necessary to treat someone with special needs. From direct and clear ableist attacks to derogatory terms or ambiguous but still malicious comments that can be said by really anyone, most of us have gone through all of this one too many times. Discrimination has become a part of the routine of neurodivergent people. However, with activists and neurodivergent people themselves bringing attention to these issues, now there are many more schools that want to help us, which is obviously great. But to properly address this subject, there is an extremely important part: listening. Even though the desire for a better school, for a more accessible school, is obviously great and comes from a good place, sometimes the lack of opinion that comes from actual neurodivergent people might not help as much as it would. And so the main part of this is to turn to whoever needs this help and ask how to support them. So I asked some friends and family who are neurodivergent what aspects of school environments makes a person consider differently their whole life, how to make them feel included. Some of the common answers I got were a place that is comfortable when someone gets overwhelmed, blocking headphones or the permission to use them, more times on tests and separate place to take them, assignments with a larger font. And when talking to them, I realized that it's actually not difficult to find out what we need. But sometimes people don't ask because of a stigma that is in our society. The thought that we want to abuse these privileges when we just need these adaptations to thrive as much as neurotypicals. Another very important part of having accessible environments is to be aware, whether you are neurotypical or not. Research common difficulties that neurodivergent people may have. After all, we sometimes are too ashamed to talk. And teachers also play a huge role in accessibility. So research how to teach, how to help your students, and how to create a classroom that makes your students realize their strengths and not just focus on their limitations. And like I said, ask them. The most memorable teachers in my life are not the ones I particularly like the subject of, but instead the ones that made an effort to help me. And neurodivergent people, regardless of the amount of support they need, have dreams and goals, but sometimes others don't understand that to achieve them, we might need a little more support. Because our brains work differently, and we receive stimuli and information in countless ways, but that doesn't mean we're not capable. We can think beyond the typical mind and notice things that others may not notice and make great things out of it. All minds should be celebrated. Everyone should have the right to receive help and follow their dreams just like anyone else. Whether that is having a bigger font to take a difficult test, needing more time to take them, or needing mufflers to concentrate in class. After all, the differences in how we think is necessary to move forward as a society. Thank you.